On today's episode, the Utah Hockey Club are an absolute wagon. Is it late? Too early in Buffalo? Some of the rookies that have been really impressive this year, and the NHL is back. It is one hell of an episode here for you guys today. Here is NordCast episode 74.
Do people in Canada have cable, like other people?
We keep this up in the playoffs. I don't care.
And at Chili's. Is it a Chili's?
Achilles.
Finally.
You don't know that?
Fuck you! Get this guy the fuck out of here!
Alright, well, coming in at number 5, I got Anthony Stolars.
Now! Jets are winning the cup!
Thank you for watching and listening. What's going on, guys? And welcome back to another episode of the NordCast. It is Sunday, October 13th, 2024. I am Nordic here and just Nordic here today. The guys could not come together for an episode this week. Carter is very busy with work and his junior hockey team, which hopefully we'll get into in another episode. And Jack is living the good old college life, as we've been talking about the last couple of weeks with our episodes. So we weren't really able to record an episode this past week. We do apologize for that. Obviously, the content with me does not stop. It does not be just regarded by those two guys, because if it was, then God bless me, I would be far behind. But regardless, the NHL's back. We're doing absolutely great. Every team, I would say, about now has played at least 1 to 3 games. So currently, we're in a pretty good spot right now when it comes to every team. There have been a few butts and bruises here and there. Obviously, Tampa and Carolina had to postpone a game because of the Hurricane Millen, which is unfortunate. To any listeners who are listening and live in Florida and have been the victim of that, first off, prayers to you, and second, thank you for listening during what is probably one of the hardest times of your lives. But yeah, that was really the only bumps and bruises. There's been a few headlines that have come up over the last couple of weeks, and I figured we'd get into them a little bit here. The first one being UNS Korpisalo was the biggest one that we saw when he played a game, actually opening night game against the Florida Panthers. He did not look good. And honestly, we knew that Korpisalo, obviously last year was a very rough year for him. But even heading into this opener game, which it should have been Swayman, had there not been disputes with his contract and stuff, which we may get into in a little bit here. But honestly, it would have been Swayman and net there starting if it weren't for that. But yeah, Korpisalo did not look too great. Florida ended up taking the win. I wasn't really too worried about it because we knew that Jeremy Swayman was going to come back and be awesome. And we knew that Swayman was going to, be that normal goalie, and that showed in the last couple of games that we saw, notably against Montreal and even against Los Angeles as well. So Swayman's back, and he is doing good. He was obviously signed to an 8-year, $8.25 million deal, which was kind of funny. You see Cam Neely say 64 million reasons why he should be playing right now, and Jeremy Swayman says, yeah, I got 66 million reasons why. So I guess that was, and I actually don't think we talked about that on the podcast because of the way the episodes were. We kind of had a little bit of a gap there. But when that did occur, again, I said that this could take a while. I'm actually a little bit surprised, but at the same time, I'm not, that it got done so quickly after those comments that were made. It really didn't surprise. It surprised me and it didn't, because I thought that, maybe it was going to get locked up after these comments came out and they're like, yeah, they're going to sit down and actually get a deal done. Or Lewis Gross, I was going to say only Lewis Gross and not Swayman, was going to play the hard to get card and kind of just, wait it out. Essentially, that's what I thought was going to happen. But obviously, it did not go that way. So good thing Swayman's back and signed. I'm trying to think of some other headlines. Obviously, Utah played their first NHL game, and I just got to say, they are an absolute wagon. They are really exciting to watch, and I honestly think that is a team that, honestly, people forget, last year, they were close up until that 14-game losing streak. Again, if that 14-game losing streak didn't happen, there's a legitimate chance that the Arizona Coyotes, could have actually made the playoffs because they were right at the playoff line battling with teams like Nashville and St. Louis. And, those teams in Nashville and St. Louis had like such a really rough start to the year. And if Arizona didn't have like that long streak, I feel like they probably would have come way closer to the playoff line than they were at the end of the season last year. But the team moves to Utah. They make a couple moves, and they made the right moves too, bringing in Sergachev and not Valimaki and Marino and Cole, bolstering that blue line a little bit, bringing in someone like Kevin Stenlund. I honestly thought that they made a lot of really good adds, and it showed in their first 3 games. They're 3-0 right now. They started off with their home opener against Chicago, winning that. Then they go on, like what I noticed with the Coyotes and Utah, like their schedules are very similar. Like I remember at the beginning of last year, Utah, then Arizona went on that like New York, New Jersey road trip. And that's what that's what the Utah Hockey Club is on right now. And they go play the Islanders, which was one hell of a game, by the way. You see the Islanders score, then Utah scores, and the Islanders score, then Utah scores. And eventually Utah ends up winning that in overtime. Then you see that again, where Utah comes from behind against the Rangers, goes up on the Rangers, ends up blowing the lead, because of course they do. But they end up winning in overtime. Clayton Keller and Dylan Guenther are the 2 most notable players that have played through this stretch. And Gunther's really proving a lot of people wrong, because when he signed that contract at I would say a few weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago now, not even 2 weeks, like 3 weeks ago, there were a lot of people who were like, yeah, I don't like this, and thought that it was a little bit of a risk for a player who really, to be honest with you, was like didn't even play that much in the National Hockey League beforehand. So there were a lot of people that were kind of doubting him a little bit, but nope, he proved them wrong. And now he's on like an actually insane pace. Like when you look at the numbers, he actually is really unbelievable. I believe he has I think he leads the league in goals with like 4. And obviously it's like literally like only 3 or 4 games into the season for most of these teams, as I said, but that's still really impressive. So it bars the question, well, can they make the playoffs? And I think that's the question they're really asking themselves right now, because, again, this team came kind of close last year up until that losing streak. And I guess you can say that for every team, but they really look hot right now. They look like they could go. And again, I know it's only like 3 or 4 games into the season, but like if they keep this up, if they keep up this pace that they're going, they could very well make it into the playoffs. I think they're first in the NHL right now, which is the craziest part. So they look like they're on a heater. They look like they're playing really well. And again, it's what they've been building up the last couple of seasons. And honestly, my heart does go out to the Arizona fans, including myself, because I'm one of them, who watched this team and believed in this team for so long. And then you see them move away for reasons that were not their fault or the fans' fault. And, you see them go straight to Utah, and they haven't lost a game yet. So Utah, absolute wagon right now. Listen, if you're listening and you're a casual hockey fan, or, you don't really know who to follow, Utah is a good option, because they're a new team. You can just say, hey, I was getting into hockey and I saw Utah coming into the league, and I was like, yeah, let me go with Utah. That's what I'm going to give my excuse for. No, I'm kidding. I have a better excuse. But yeah, so that was the one thing that I saw, along with the Korpisalo thing, that I thought was very notable. Another thing is Alex Georgiev. Yeah, he looks like a major problem there in Colorado. And it's really warranting the question of maybe Colorado needs to go out and find another goaltender. And maybe this means that they might be giving up on Alex Georgiev. So Georgiev, through 2 NHL games this past season, he's let in 8 goals against, has a .680 save percentage, and was pulled in both games. Now, keep in mind, this is only over 2 games, of course, but there is still a little bit of concern there when you look in terms of, how he's been playing. 8 goals against in 2 games. Are you kidding me? Now, you might say the first game that Colorado played was, I believe, last Thursday against Vegas. And you can make some exceptions for that and say, oh, it's Vegas. But apparently, Vegas was heavily outplayed in that game, or at least heavily outshot. I'm trying to find the actual numbers here for you guys, but let me pull them up here. So, yeah, I got them right here. And yeah, Colorado was heavily outplaying the Golden Knights. The Knights had 21 shots, the Avs had 32, and they put up 8. They put up 8. That's over, like, that's insane. 3 goals a period, essentially. That is yikes. That is not good. So that definitely was a concern for Georgiev. And, like, again, you might look at that and be like, oh, let's put a pass on it because it's Vegas. You know, they won the Cup 2 years ago, and, oh, it's fine. But then against Columbus, a team who they should beat, they absolutely, without a doubt, should beat Columbus. And, you know, obviously Columbus is going to have a very rough year, but you go in, again, you outshoot them, but then early on in the first, you go down 1-0, 2-0, 3-1. Just like, you can't sit here and say that this isn't an issue. Now, I understand that good starting goaltenders, and it's a good video that M-Bon Hockey put out. Shout out to him. He made a really good point in a recent TikTok saying that really good NHL starters are very hard to come by. You know, I would say you have 10 or 11 really good starting goaltenders, and then after that, it's a lot of guys who are kind of they're all right, or they're wildly inconsistent. So that is an issue there for Colorado, but I feel like they need to address this in some way because we know that Georgiev can be good at points, but he's wildly inconsistent, and you can't really rely on that heading into the playoffs. Like, even last year, like, I feel like the only reason why they beat Winnipeg was because Hellebuck had a really bad playoffs. Apart from that, I felt like Georgiev was average in that round and was really bad in game 1, actually. And you might say through these 2 games, oh, you know, it's only 2 games. Like, you know, some people have rough starts to the year. Like, look at Edmonton right now. They're down 3-1 to Calgary as I'm recording this. And you can say that, but with Georgiev, we've had this issue for a while, dating back to when he was with the New York Rangers. So I really don't trust Georgiev as that starting goalie, especially with the injuries and the players who are not on the lineup right now for Colorado as it is. It is not a reliable situation whatsoever if you are a Colorado Avalanche fan. I don't know. I don't really know, to be honest with you guys. So I'm a little bit worried about Colorado and their overall goalie situation. I don't really know. There's not really much else that really has impressed me. The Devils are obviously off to a very hot start. They're 3-1 right now. Pittsburgh, notably off to kind of a rough start. Joel Blomqvist actually looks pretty good as their like backup goaltender at this point, I guess. He played in Wilkes-Barre Scranton for a few years, and I got the opportunity to see Joel Blomqvist play a couple times. He's pretty good. He's pretty damn good, especially when he's played against the Phantoms too. But yeah, we're kind of at that stage where it's a little too early to tell. We might have a better picture when we get to the next episode with the crew, and maybe hopefully they'll be back. But yeah, as of right now, there's nothing that's really concerning, I guess, because like Nashville, Colorado, and Edmonton are all 0-2. That might be a little bit concerning for some people, but I'm not too worried. I think they will be okay. I think that everything else is fine. There is one other thing that I do want to talk about, though, that I actually almost skipped over. The Buffalo Sabres. It seems like it is late early in Buffalo. And again, as I said, it looks a little bit worrisome. And I say the late early part as like a kind of connection to the 32 Thoughts podcast, because they really made a good point at saying it. Like, they start off the year in the Global Series, and they honestly, like, in the first game, they got goalied. They played really well, I thought, but they got goalied. That's what I thought happened. The second game against the Devils, they got really outplayed, and it was a really rough game, and it definitely shows some worry. Now, again, the Devils are a really good team, and you look at, like, Buffalo's schedule, all of the teams that they've played have been playoff teams, except for, I guess, the Devils last year, which I guess makes up for half of their schedule, but, like, they will be a playoff team this year, barring any big surprises, of course. But they've played the Kings, they've played the Devils, and they played the Panthers. So, obviously, it's not an ideal start to your season. Your first 4 games are against teams that have been in the playoffs or were in the playoffs in the last 2 seasons. So that is definitely an issue there, and I feel like again, like in the Global Series, they really struggled, and there was a lot of pressure put on them already. Like, as it is, like, you know that Kevin Adams' job is on the line. You know that's very worrisome for Buffalo, and they're trying to, you know, like the Lindsey Ruff hiring was just to fill seats. And I know there's some people listening who might disagree with that, but honestly, that's kind of what I believe when I see that. It does look really worrisome. They're 1-3. They did beat the Florida Panthers, who are dealing with injuries on their own. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like it might be late, early in Buffalo, and they've only played 4 games. That's a little bit of a worry. But if this trend does kind of continue, they do have an easier schedule heading into the end of the month. They play Chicago and Columbus a couple of times, and then they follow it up with Dallas and Florida. So they have a mix of really good games. They have a mix of easy games with some hard games in there too. But it really seems like it's late, early in Buffalo. And if we see them go off to a really rough start, I think Kevin Adams is on his way out. I mean, he's been here since 2021? He's been here for about 3-4 years at this point. So we're getting to that point where they might have to move on from him. So that's a little bit worrisome there with the Sabres. But again, I feel like they have the young core where they can maybe do it. If they come really close to the playoffs again, I think that might keep his job. If they get in, of course it will. But it depends if they take a step on the ice and in the standings at least a little bit, even if they do that and not make the playoffs, I think Adams keeps his job. But if they miss for a 14th straight season and they don't take a step at all, I feel like there could be even more major changes done in Buffalo. But then again, what do you do? You've been through this so many times. What do you do? You're in such a rough situation right now if you're the Buffalo Sabres. So hopefully they can figure that out, or hopefully not, depending on what team you're a fan of. It wouldn't really surprise me, to be honest with you. But let's move into some news around the NHL. There hasn't been a ton, but there is a few things I do want to talk about. There's been a few first NHL goals this past season. Maxim Tisplikov has scored his first NHL goal. It was a pretty good one, too, against Utah. Macklin Celebrini scored one of the coolest, weirdest, worst, interesting goals I've ever seen. I thought that first goal was actually very funny. He scored like a no-look, spun around, it bounced off a blue defender and went past Binnington. I think it's Binnington, right? Or is that Hofer? I think it went past Hofer and in. And yeah, very interesting goal. And then the other goal that was scored was Emil Heineman. Yeah. He scored his first. He was a 2020 43rd overall pick. So he was drafted a while ago and made his debut for Montreal, and obviously ended up scoring his first NHL goals. That's pretty good there, but that's the only 3 first NHL goals we've seen. None from Michkov, none from Hudson, none from Gauthier or a few other guys, but maybe we'll know that in the next couple of days. Other interesting news, Ville Husso has been placed on waivers, and he was one of the notable goaltenders of Detroit in their goalie square or triangle or rhombus, however you want to call it. But he has been placed on waivers. We'll see if he gets claimed again. I talked about Colorado earlier needing maybe another goaltender. Maybe they go down that road and try and get Husso. I don't think that's a better option, but maybe they go down that way. But Husso, they already have so many goalies in their system. I feel like one of them was going to get sent down at some point. He does have 1 year left on his deal, so I can only imagine he's probably not going to sign after this coming season. So, again, you can kind of tell that Detroit's really shaping this team. A lot of their guys are kind of on, small extensions and stuff. Or not really small extensions, but shorter-term deals. So, hopefully, Detroit will fix that problem, obviously. Injury news, Boone Jenner is out with some unfortunate. He is apparently undergoing a shoulder surgery and an injury suffered after a really freak accident in practice last week. He's expected to miss a minimum of 5 months, which sucks. Come on. Columbus has been through so much already, and now you're losing your captain to injury. Just really sucks. It really sucks for Columbus. Just when you look at it, it honestly is actually terrible. And hopefully Jenner can come back at some point, and hopefully he will be okay. Some signings that I do want to talk about. Carter Verhaeghe, on the night of the first game for Florida, signed an 8-year, $7 million contract extension with the Florida Panthers. I thought that deal was pretty good. I think that Verhaeghe, most notably, was very impressive during that Stanley Cup run, and even before that. He is Mr. Overtime Goal. The amount of goals I've seen for Hagee score in overtime, I think I've seen him score more in overtime than I have in regulation, which is kind of funny. But yeah, he is somebody who is really clutch, and locking him up to an 8-year deal, it definitely puts Florida into a little bit of an interesting spot because, yes, they're going to contend for the next 4 to 5 seasons, but they're going to have one hell of a nuclear rebuild in, like, I would say 6 or 7 years when that's done. And maybe we'll still be recording episodes by then. But, yeah, they look like they're going to be in an interesting spot come that time. But obviously they're not worried about that right now. And Linus Ullmark has been signed to a 4-year, $8.25 million extension with the Ottawa Senators. Yes, folks, he has been signed. It's funny because he's locked up to the same amount as Jeremy Swayman. So, good on Ottawa for, first off, getting this done early. I mean, like, honestly, if you were dragging this into the season and the Sens started off really slow, probably would have gotten traded. But nope, he's staying in Ottawa with this deal. I love it. And I think that Ottawa's finally found their goaltender. And there's a lot of people with a lot of optimism for them to take a step this year. So we'll see if that can happen. Looks very interesting, but we'll see what comes of that. And then finally, Joey Dackert signed a 5-year, $5 million deal with the New York Islanders. The Seattle Kraken, sorry. Dackert, I thought it's a little bit interesting, to be honest with you, because Dackert had a really good second half of the season, and that's all we really have of him. It's a really small sample size. So I thought that was very interesting, but overall, I would say that it's a pretty good contract. Hopefully it works out well, but a little bit of a risk there for sure with that Dackert contract. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. And that's pretty much all I have for news. The last thing I do want to talk about is that the 2025 NHL draft will be held in Los Angeles, and it will be a decentralized draft, which means that the GMs, scouts, and everyone else will not go to the draft. It's a little bit unfortunate. I get it from the owner and GM standpoint because obviously, you know, they're doing all this travel and free agency and the draft are so close together. But it does really suck for like the fan standpoint and the player standpoint because it's always been your dream to go up and shake Ken Holland's hand or Danny Briere's hand or, you know, Stevie Y's hand. Like you always wanted to do that when you were young. Well, you were always thinking about that and being like, oh, it's a part of the dream. It's a part of it. But it sucks that it's not going to be that way anymore. But I do understand it from that perspective. And it is unfortunate. All right. One more thing here that we're going to talk about before we wrap up this episode. I'm actually going to send it to a YouTube video that I made a few days ago or yesterday when you guys see this. It is previewing the 2024-25 NHL rookies. I figured that because I watched the episode, I edited it, and I was like, yeah, I could probably post that on the podcast, especially since the fact that we have not recorded an episode in a little bit and we didn't get to do our rookie preview. So for those who do not follow my YouTube channel, which you guys will be watching this, you guys may have already seen this video, so you guys can just kind of click off, to be honest with you. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this episode of the podcast. I'm going to ship it over to the rookie preview. But anyways, that'll do it for this one after that. Thanks for watching. Subscribe down below if you're new. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.
All right. Today we are talking about rookies. Every single year you have a bunch of rookies competing for the Calder Trophy, the trophy that's awarded to the best rookie every NHL season. It's always fun to take a look at the NHL rookie race because every single year you're looking at the future of the NHL essentially. Every now and then you'll have your occasional Connor McDavid or Connor Bedard or Michael Bunting and this year in particular is a lot of fun because I would say you have 5 or 6 rookies that honestly could compete and maybe even win the Calder Trophy. And we're going to go through all of those rookies today and more as well. So here I have 13 rookies listed. It's not that good. You can see my awful handwriting again. 13 skaters and 3 goaltenders is what I have here for you guys today, and we're going to go through each and every single one of them, look at their stats last year, and kind of just talk about whether or not I think they can win and my overall thoughts on each of them. So without further ado, let's start off with Matvei Michkov. Michkov is obviously I would say, the favorite to win the Calder Trophy right now. You look at every single betting site except for maybe a few outliers. He is the number 1 ranked rookie to win the trophy. So it makes a ton of sense. And I think that he could be very exciting this year for Philadelphia, and honestly already has. Michkov had 41 points in 47 games played last year with HK Sochi, and even though, yes, he got loaned from St. Petersburg to Sochi, he still had a very good season and honestly surprised everyone by coming over a season early. Actually, not even a season early. I would say he came over a few years early, actually. Again, if you guys saw my video on my expectations for the Philadelphia Flyers, you guys would have seen my overall thoughts on Michkov, where I projected him to be. I would recommend checking out that video, but at least as of right now, I am hoping for a good 40-point season out of Michkov. That is my floor, but if he does finish below that, I wouldn't be surprised, and I'd actually be okay with it, because honestly, it's a rookie season. You don't know what you're expecting out of everyone, obviously. We're going to move right along from Michkov over to Macklin Celebrini, the first overall pick in this past year's draft by the San Jose Sharks. Celebrini, coming off of a really good year from Boston University, had 64 points in 38 games played, and he looks like somebody who is very creative and is really being hyped up. Now, we are a few days into the NHL season, so I'm going to refer to the 2024-25 season here a little bit, but we saw Celebrini score one of the strangest, worst, coolest, interesting goals I've ever seen. But unfortunately, as of a couple of days ago, Celebrini was placed on injury reserve. He will be out for at least a week, which really stinks because he obviously is the first overall pick and looked really exciting when he was playing with the club. But if he does come back and does kind of rejuvenate himself, he did have 2 points in his NHL debut, so you can't help but be excited for him a little bit, and hopefully that will transfer over into the NHL level more and more and more from what we saw in Boston University. Now, someone from also Boston University who looks very exciting for the Montreal Canadiens is Lane Hutson. Hutson was a 4th-round pick a few years back and wasn't looked at as much because, look, he was a 4th-round pick, but he has really blossomed into a really star-studded, offensively creative defenseman. I mean, come on, you see some of the plays that he made in training camp, some of the plays he made in the preseason. This guy has really good hands. So much good hands that he had 49 points in 38 games played this year with Boston University, alongside Macklin Celebrini as well. For a defenseman like him who is undersized, I do think that he is going to blossom offensively. He already has. He actually leads rookies in points right now if you go look at it, unless you're looking at this like a few days from now, obviously. But I think that Hudson's one of those players who is really going to blossom into something very good, but this year could be a real developmental year for him. He could have really good plays offensively, but I have a feeling that he is going to get embarrassed defensively sometimes, being an undersized defender like he is. And that's okay, because some people do have that happen when they get to the NHL level. I mean, come on, look at Jeff Petrie. He's been in the league for like 10 years. But I would say of the defensemen that I do have on this list, and there isn't a lot of them, in fact, he might be the only one, actually. He is the most exciting of those guys for sure, and I think that he could definitely come top 3 or top 2 in Calder voting. Now, number 4 is somebody who played in the NHL last year, and he upsetted some people because he meets the Calder eligibility by only 1 game. That is Logan Stankoven of the Dallas Stars. He split time in the AHL and in the NHL, putting up 14 points in 24 games played with the NHL Stars, and then 57 points in 47 games played with the AHL Stars. Stankoven also spent some time in the playoffs and looked even more exciting there as well. I would say there's a lot more hype around Stankoven rather than Hutson or I guess Celebrini too, because we know what Stankoven can do. We saw how he produced at the NHL level, and I think that there are some people who are picking him to actually win the Calder Trophy because of that. A little bit of an honorable mention to Maverick Bourque, who played with him in the AHL with the Texas Stars. Maverick Bourque also looks very entertaining as well. Is not on this list of rookies, but is somebody who could make an impact this year in the NHL. On to the next, we have Cutter Gauthier, a guy who was traded last year from the team that drafted him to the SoCal Anaheim Ducks and he looks like he could be a monster. There's a lot of people who see Michkov, Celebrini, Hudson, and kind of overlook Gauthier. Gauthier had a monster year in Boston College. Actually had more points than Celebrini. Yes, I know, it was only one. I know that. He had 65 points in 41 games played with Boston College, Macklin Celebrini's ironic rival, and is now playing on an ironic rival against Celebrini's team. It's kind of interesting how that works, but Gauthier is a monster of a player. He is very good, and I think people kind of overlook him because they see guys like Michkov and Celebrini in the pool this year. Cutter Gauthier, if the Anaheim Ducks do kind of surprise with some of their young players, he could very well win the damn thing, so don't count him out just yet. Now that I look at this, I probably should have paired Celebrini and his partner, Will Smith, not that one, Will Smith of Boston College together because they both play on the same team. They're both making their rookie season debut. And come on, two of probably the best prospects in the league making their debut rookie season together. That's storybook incredible for the San Jose Sharks. Will Smith actually had 71 points in 41 games played with Boston College. And of the guys that I have listed in this rookie pool, I believe he has the most points of any of them. He looks like a highly talented, highly creative player, and honestly could win the Calder as well. I would say there are 6 rookies here that you can make a legitimate argument for them to win the Calder Trophy this year, and Will Smith is definitely one of them. He had a very good year in Boston College, and him and Celebrini connecting together could be the next, Raymond and Sider for rookies. So those are 6 guys who I believe have a legitimate chance at winning the Calder Trophy. Now we get into the guys who I can kind of just go a little bit rapid fire through, not really talk about too much because honestly I don't think they're going to contend for the Calder, but they're still going to be exciting rookies for sure. The first one on that list is Rutger McGroarty, recently traded from the Winnipeg Jets to the Pittsburgh Penguins in a controversial 1-for-1 deal that made a lot of Winnipeg Jets fans angry, specifically my podcast host Carter. But McGroarty, for good reasons, looks very exciting. He had 52 points in 36 games played with the University of Michigan. He is one of the guys on this list who honestly looks really exciting, but actually might be in and out of the NHL. It seems like they might not be as reliable with McGroarty in Pittsburgh. They might want to put him down for a season with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, but he did make the lineup because I believe Brian Rust is injured, but when Rust comes back, there's a decent chance we see McGroarty go down. Next up, we have an older guy. This guy is much older than a lot of the other players on this list because he actually spent time in the KHL before coming over. It's Maxim Tisplikov of the New York Islanders. Tisplikov had 47 points in 65 games played with Spartak Moskva of the KHL. That is, I think, a loan, I believe he was loaned to that team. But a guy like Tisplikov playing regular minutes in the KHL, putting up 47 points is very impressive, and getting signed to that deal by the Islanders, he honestly could be somebody who honestly really makes a dent in the NHL. Then you have Josh Doan of Utah, who put up 9 points in 11 games last year with the NHL Coyotes, and had 46 points in 62 games played for the AHL Coyotes. Yes, he is the son of Josh Doan and looks actually pretty exciting. He already has a goal through Utah in their first couple of games. He's going to be real dangerous as a second-round pick. Nikolai Kovalenko of the Colorado Avalanche, similar to Tisplikov, was drafted by the Avalanche in 2018. That was 6 years ago at this point. And Kovalenko put up 35 points this past year in 42 games played with Torpedo. Actually came over a little bit for Colorado, played in the playoffs, looked very good, and actually made the team out of camp. His story is similar to Kirill Kaprizov of Minnesota, except he's not Kirill Kaprizov, he's Nikolai Kovalenko. After that, then, you have Samuel Honzik of the Calgary Flames, who also made the team out of camp, had 31 points in 33 games played with the Vancouver Giants. I thought that he looked solid last year in a shortened season, and the fact that he made the roster after not really playing that much last year in the WHL is pretty impressive. We'll see what he can do. Yuri Kulich of the Buffalo Sabres had 45 points in 57 games played with the Rochester Americans last year. He did make the roster. He actually played in the Global Series and has been on the roster since. And I think due to injuries, he's going to have a real chance to prove himself, or else he's probably going back down to the minors. Mackie Samoskevich of the Florida Panthers had 54 points in 62 games played in the American Hockey League with the Charlotte Checkers. He is already playing a regular NHL role with the team. Since they lost a lot of depth, it's really given him an opportunity to make this roster, and hopefully he might make a name for himself this year as a old Michigan guy. And then finally, I'm just going to throw him in here, but Jet Luchenko of the Philadelphia Flyers, he made this team out of training camp, shockingly. Had a pretty good year with Guelph last year, and hopefully he can keep that up with the Flyers, but I probably think he's going to be sent back to Guelph as well. And those are all the notable skaters that I saw that I thought were of note to possibly be in the rookie class, possibly be in contention for the Calder. I think we know who's going to be doing it, though. It's the 6 guys that I already mentioned at the beginning of the video. The other guys that I mentioned after that were kind of just honorable mentions and other guys that I thought would be fun in this rookie class. But I do want to talk about 3 rookie goaltenders who I think could have a chance at maybe surprising some people and getting up there in the Calder race. The first one should be very obvious. It's Dustin Wolf. He had a 7-7-1 last year with the Calgary Flames, a .893 and a 3.16 goals against average. With the AHL Flames, though, he had a 20-12-3 record, a 2.5 goals against, and a .923. Wolf has been hyped up for a long time as this really exciting goalie for Calgary, and even in the first few games of the season this year, he's actually looked very impressive, actually backstopped the Flames to a 6-3 win last night against my Philadelphia Flyers. So if there was a rookie that I would have picked to win the Calder Trophy, it is 100% Dustin Wolf for sure. Somebody else, though, that I think could be really interesting is Joel Blomqvist of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He had a 25-12-6 record with a 2.16 and a .921 record with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. I saw him play a couple times in Lehigh Valley. If I have a picture, I'll pull it up here, but I've seen him play a few times in person. He is very good. He is really good, and he's already played a few games in the NHL and already looks pretty entertaining, if I do say so myself. So I'm really looking forward to him maybe taking over the NHL role with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Maybe he takes over Jari. This is maybe the Matt Murray or the Marc-Andre, you get what I mean. And finally, the last rookie that I want to talk about before I get into my Calder predictions is Artur Shilov. Last year in the playoffs, we know what this guy can do. But with the AHL Canucks, he had a 16-11-6 record, a 2.74 and a .907 with the Abbotsford Canucks. So he did have a pretty good record down there and looks like he could be the 1A, 1B right now with Demko being out of the lineup. So he could contend for it as well. But those are pretty much all the rookies that I think are going to be in contention for the Calder Trophy or be exciting. Now it's time for my overall Calder predictions. 2 finalists. I have Macklin Celebrini as my first one. First overall pick. Already looks really good. I think he's going to be exciting. And then I have Lane Hudson as the other one. Already looks like he's offensively talented with Montreal as a undersized defenseman. He's actually my second place guy. I think he could damn well win the thing, to be honest with you. And then my winner, number 1, is Matvei Michkov. You can call that bias all you want, but I saw what this guy did in the preseason. I saw this guy play the first 2 games of his NHL career. He looks a lot of fun to watch, and I think that when he gets adjusted, when he gets to the legitimate level that he can get to, he's going to be dangerous. But yeah, those are rookies that I think are going to be really exciting this year. Maybe not all of them contend for the Calder Trophy, but I think those are a lot of guys who people are going to have their eyes on during the 2024-25 season. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe down below. I greatly appreciate it. We are getting closer to 3,000. We're almost 100 away, actually. So keep the subscribers coming. I really do appreciate it. And anyways, that's it for me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Thank you guys so much for watching or listening to yet again another episode of the NordCast. If you enjoyed, please subscribe down below or follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you want to follow us on TikTok, we are at NordCast. If you want to follow us on Instagram or Twitter, follow at NordCast_. That'll do it for this episode. I'm Nordic. Thanks for listening from all the crew, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.